create new ideas. And Piggyback Network has given us the opportunity to use our energy toward helping a greater number of people than just our small groups that we traditionally interact with. So it's exciting. Thank you all for joining, and feel free to ask any questions as we walk through the slides. This is meant to be very interactive, and if anything comes up, feel free to share because we're sharing information, but we're also still in the information gathering phase because everyone has a really good idea when they hear about the idea that we are presenting.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that statement. So every time we sort of kick off these impromptu or even formal sessions, we bring our thoughts and experiences to the conversation, but we always leave with another aha moment, another gotcha. I like to say that what we kind of created was a Lego piece. And with that Lego piece and the help of others in the community, in the cities, parents, teachers, just all around thinkers, creatives, we're able to take those Lego pieces and start to build structures out of them. So what we're doing tonight is just kind of laying out what our thoughts have been so far, how we hit the market, what some of our visions are, and we're really open to a dialogue and thoughts and feedback and suggestions from you guys. And then we'll get into the investment piece, the second half of the talk, and that'll be more of a kind of a structured lecture of what we've created, and then allow more Q&A after
Sounds good
that.
to me.
All
I'm
right.
going to be in a listening capacity, and if opportunity presents itself, happy-ish knows that I'm not shy with asking lots of probing questions, but I am definitely kind of, even as I talk to people about it, kind of trying to describe it, even reading the website. So looking forward to just hearing more about it from you. I can kind of get a sense of where the passion came from to put this together. Me and Ish have talked about it a little bit. So yeah, excited for the discussion.
Nice. So thank you. And I see Marcus, Sabrina, and is that just you, Mr. Edwards, or is that the whole house? I'll give you time to come off mute if you do. But thank you for joining tonight. And we're going to jump in. And what you guys missed was just the intro, so everybody knows who we are already. And kind of get started on the problem statement, how we came about with the concept. So before we had kids, Donald and I, very active. The way we got to the positions in our professional life, social life, was a lot of extracurricular activities. We definitely hit the books hard as kids, but we also had a value on being involved with sports, being involved with after school jobs, with after school education enrichment activities and things like that. And even though he's from the suburbs, I'm from the city, we each had to deal with our own set of transportation issues, how we're going to get back and forth. We had little siblings that we had to tend to. We had other responsibilities around the house, and our parents were working full time and, engaged in everything. When we became parents, we started kind of looking at the trends that we were doing as our generation became parents. Now we had cell phones. Now we had, every calendar minute had to be filled with something. We're double booked, we're triple booked, and there's still this need to transport the kids. So we're fortunate, we're employed. We have, some disposable income to be able to manage dealing with our children, getting them involved in the activities that they want to do, that we want them to do. Donald's even relocated state to state, different neighborhoods based on what the community offered for raising your children, how his wife and kids could enjoy it. Not a lot of people, not everybody has that opportunity, and we're looking at providing that access and making it equitable for parents that want to have their children involved in things, but transportation is an issue. There, y'all are got a live mic there. So we're looking at children from birth. Like our daycare that we send our girls to, they start at 6 weeks. When people come off from maternity leave, have to go back to the office, they take kids as young as 6 weeks old. And you see these parents driving, rushing to get there at a certain time. There's a double park, triple parked on Western Avenue, one of the biggest, busiest streets, to get the kids in and out because you get fined if you don't get picked up in time. And we're just kind of looking at there's got to be a better way to do it than the Uber model where people are sending their underage kids on paid transport services where you just, a blue sedan is showing up, but you don't know who's actually driving that car. And you don't know, what the background is as far as dealing with children and things like that. And all of this is kind of forming in our head as we're living our regular lives, raising our kids and doing this and that. And then when I started noticing is my kids were in two different schools that my driving route is overlapping with some of the other drivers. I'm literally dropping off my first grader and driving up the Dan Ryan to my other school, and I see other parents on the road driving with me. My kids are waving at each other in the back seat to each other. And I'm like, we don't need to both be on this road. So all of this is kind of building up in us over years as we're discussing ways that we can get involved in entrepreneurship and do something on our own. And that's just kind of how the conversation started. Like it was just a what if we created something where parents could meet each other and use the internet, which we use to forge these bonds, to create these virtual networks, these friends systems, these groups of trusted virtual friends, but we don't necessarily lean on them like neighbors. Some of them we never actually meet in person, but there's this bond that's formed there. So what if we use that bond as well as the need to interact with each other's children and kind of married that together? Next slide. So our solution was what we're looking to do is empower families to locate and coordinate shared rides. In a perfect system, we would have time to go up to every family that goes to the same school as our kid, that lives in our neighborhood, that goes to our office, and just open up and say, "This is my entire world. Is there a match between you and I? If not, move on to the next parent." We can't do that. It's just not feasible. It's not possible. It's not logical. So the internet can. The code algorithm can. It can take information and say, of all these people at this school, these two families here, one's in seventh grade, one's in second grade, they actually overlap with the route that you drive every day. You guys would never know it. Very rarely would you actually meet each other and do that. But our solution can do that. If everyone's putting in their data that they drive, that they need driven, we can overlap those routes and determine which families should talk. But that's the first step. Families sign up, enter their data, and then the data says you should talk. Beyond that, we have them meet in person. So now the match that we've recommended from our system is saying you guys should meet in person. And now you can sit across from that individual, have the children come meet at their house, meet at your house, meet in the car, have them practice driving, you practice driving, whatever you need to feel comfortable. And now that's a second layer of comfort once you've seen how they are in person. You hear the way they talk to their children. You see the way they respond when there's an altercation. You can ask them questions, direct questions. What are their views on this? How they react when there's an allergic reaction? Do they have any allergies? Is there any health things they should worry about? They know their children. You know your children. Break out the embarrassing stuff. Are you cool with potty words? Whatever you. Donald's kids, when we went on vacation, my girls learned a lot of words they didn't know before. And had we known that, we might not have, agreed to go on a trip with them. But now they're potty word sayers because we hung out with this family for a couple of days. Those types of things you can feel out during a face-to-face meet. And what it's doing is instead of families relying on this anonymous driver to come pick up their kids and drop them off, they've actually got a new family member in their cell phone. You've got a new resource that you can lean on, that you trust, that you build a bond with, and actually strengthen that community tie, because now that person that goes to school with you, that was driving on the same side of the highway as you, now you're actually friends and you're actually building a bond stronger than friendship. Okay. Next slide. So if you're in Chicago, you're familiar with the selective schooling. That's where you can take a test to get into a classical or a gifted school, and they're just academic wise, they're more challenging than some of the neighborhood schools. And it's something that our city has kind of prided itself on for decades. Camille and I went to selective schools. We met in high school, one of the selective enrollment high schools. And we've had our daughters on those tracks since preschool to try to make sure they got into the best opportunities possible. What this means is we got to travel. Dayton got into school. The one she matched with, 17 miles away from our house. And we just kind of looked at each other and I was like, all right, that's just a commitment we're going to do for 9 years, kindergarten through 8th grade. I'll be making that drive, making sure she gets to school and back home on time. It's something some parents are committed to doing. And I don't regret it, but it's challenging. And the rush to get back here to start this call, I got half my dinner sitting right here because I didn't have time to eat much. But it's just one of those things. It's like that's a priority to me, and it's a lot of families in that situation. Multiple kids, different schools. You know that that's a sacrifice. You know it's something you want to give to your kids. We're fortunate enough to lean on our family members, my in-laws, my sisters, my brothers, my sister-in-laws. They can help us out with a lot of the transportation when we need to, but not everybody has that. My girls are 6 and 8. At some point, they're going to be involved in after school activities, some that they choose, some that we choose. There's tons of studies that show the benefits of putting your kids into extracurricular activities, be it academic, arts, sports, just that well-rounded child that it's building. And that's another thing, that the best opportunities may not be the neighborhood options. You may want to travel. You may want to get them involved in activities that travel, and meet those families that can take the whole van load of people for the weekend, and you can relax some of those weekends. So that's another thought that came out of this. And then the other is neighborhood safety. It's known that the zip code that you're in, where you work, where you frequent, can determine what's going to happen in your life, whether you're going to become a statistic on the positive or the negative side of things. And we definitely want to impact that and say, no matter where you're born, no matter where you reside, you can have access to the best things you're that you're capable of getting into. And we want to make sure that transportation is not an obstacle for any family. Right? Next slide. So as we're putting this pitch out to different corporations, we've talked to small to medium-sized towns already. We've talked to large cities. We've had a chat with a school board of a very large city in the East Coast, and they want to summarize. They don't want to get into the nitty-gritty how it works. They want to know, like, what are the key points. So what we came up with was these 3 key points. What makes us different from just hiring a van to get your child from point A to point B. And we're focusing on trust, we're focusing on building community, and then there's also giving back to community. So the trust piece goes back to that 2-tiered system where we're matching you based on your routes first, but then that second piece where you're in person actually giving the interview yourself. You're actually feeling them out, and there's no commitment. You could fill them out and say, hey, this is a go. Let's get started. And after that second ride, you're like, yeah, my kid's not feeling it, or I'm not feeling it, or you were late, or we just don't like the vibe, or our schedules have changed. No contract, no obligation. Just don't schedule again with that driver, and keep moving. And that piece is attracting a lot of parents because COVID, return to office, the weather, whatever goes on, a parent's life is not monotonous. It's something different going on every day. Camille and I are constantly running through the changes to the schedule. Okay, you got this, you got that. All right, great. Building community as far as bringing the parents together, bringing the schools together, bringing the extracurricular activities together. A lot of people during COVID, they had to shut down, lower their rates, go virtual. Many haven't recovered and many won't recover. Our dance studio closed down permanently after being staple in Beverly for 20 years and 25 years, and they couldn't recover. A lot of newer formed sports leagues and arts companies, they couldn't recover, or they're looking at alternative ways to get people back to where they were. And we're partnering with them. We're saying, hey, look, for some parents, it's all about transportation. They can afford the fee. They have the need to go, but they don't know where they're going to physically be for the duration of that season. So if we can come in and say, okay, as long as we have a handful of committed parents, we can make sure everybody else gets there, because piggyback can be used to group those parents together. So we're trying to help build that sense of community and togetherness within these groups, that the only issue is transportation. And then there's also giving back to the community. And one of the things that we wanted to do, we will be profitable. but we also want to make sure we have a profit sharing mechanism so that those facilities, those dance studios, those park districts that partner with us and use our name and brand for us, they get a share of those rides that originate or terminate at their location. So that's one thing that we're using to incentivize the facilities to spread our name, to have our plaques up, to hand out our cards with their marketing material and things like that. Next slide. So these are the numbers that, a lot of the VCs, venture capitalists, and people that are looking at the big dollars. Is this really something that is worth us actually taking a look at? So we lead with these slides in some of the calls. The dollars that are spent, we're merging two different industries with the digital ride share, the technical ride share piece, and then also the extracurricular activity. So ride share wise, everybody knows Lyft, everybody knows Uber, and the numbers are just staggering. Going back pre-COVID, it's growing. Everybody's finding a need, even if you didn't think you needed, even if you're in the city you grew up in, you got perfect access to a bike, perfect access to a car, the train, the bus. At some point, you're downloading Uber and you're saying, just, I don't feel like it. I'm just going to take a Uber. And those people are growing, and Uber is spreading, and they're using that market branding, and the fact that everyone knows their name to their advantage. The company itself, even when it's not profitable, it's growing, and the share is growing and the revenue is growing. So we're throwing those numbers out. The ones that appeal to us the most, the numbers at the bottom. So globally, monthly users of the leading rideshare Uber doubled between 50 million and 110 million between 2016 and 2019. So that growth, that double in 3 years, the percentage of those members that are between the ages of 16 and 24 was 37%. A third of those new members are gonna be parents within the next 10 to 15 years. And the way we're spending that is there's gonna be parents that never knew a time when you couldn't flag a car through your phone, through your computer. And that concept right now, we're trying to convert parents and grandparents who it's just odd. It's why would I do that? I don't know the person. It's somebody on the internet. It's somebody in a social network. These people will be our major customers within 15 years as we start to hit our stride nationally. Hopefully, we've already hit it, but they're going to be very familiar with the concept of using your phone for transportation to lock things in, and that's one of the things we're leaning on. The other one is just as a society, we don't carpool much at all. We're talking with a friend of ours that's at BP, British Petroleum, and they've got some interest in working with us on a number of different avenues because carpooling, just reducing the emissions, is safer for the environment when we remove cars from the road. And then that's in addition to building the community ties. And statistically, 77% of adult commuters, they drive to work alone. They are in their car just to get to work. That car never has another vehicle, another person in it, and it sits in the parking lot all day, and then they take it back home. As a country, we're amongst the worst of the large countries that don't share vehicles, and then also, those vehicles could be used to help out with other transportation needs. And that's one of the things we're looking at is taking those empty vehicles that you're driving to work. If you're driving to work and someone's got a kid that needs to be picked up along that route, you could be a piggyback driver. So that's one of the ways we're trying to tie into that and work with corporations to kind of push that to their employees, incentivize them and things like that, so that we can get that number, that 77% down. And then also, today, less than 10% of US commuters carpool. It used to be 20% when in the 80s, the 70s and 80s. So when we grew up, it was more common that people were doing it, but safety and lawsuits and a lot of different reasons, people kind of stuck to themselves. As a community, we're tighter knit because of the internet. We know more people. I've got 2,400 friends on Facebook, but we don't trust people in real life as much. So we thought that was an interesting stat to put on there as well. All right, extracurriculars. So here's what, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in here. If this isn't the time for questions, let me know. But one of the things I wanted to ask was just in general, like, could you just say a little bit more about incentivizing kind of whether it be corporations or school boards or what have you to kind of get more people carpooling? Because obviously, right, that to me is the center of all of this. How you kind of convince people and generate kind of the trust that you need for kind of people to feel comfortable. Obviously,
Sure. So the way, and this isn't in the slides here. This is actually sort of in progress right now, but the way we are looking at our customers, we really have two different customers. They're both parents, they're all families. But one customer is, I just need somebody to take my kid. And when it comes to the I just need someone to take my kid customer, we found that trust is one of the priorities, but the main thing is just take them. Just I don't care who comes to get them. I can't do it. Somebody else has to do it. Timing of when we launched, August, mid-August, the bus drivers walking out the end of August. We got a huge onslaught of those families that have never been responsible for the transportation of their kid. So now it goes from, the bus will be here at 5 o'clock, maybe, to the bus route is completely canceled. And now they're in a panic. They find us through friends, through the net, through social media, through marketing. They find us and they're just like calling, I don't know how you work, but here's my address, pick the kid up. They're not even looking through the website to see, what's the concept, how does it work, the matching, anything like that. They're literally like, I just need somebody to get this kid. So as we explain it to them, they're like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. When are you going to match me? And I'm like, well, sir, we match you when we have someone driving that route. And it actually helps if you offer to drive a route. I'm not driving. I'm not a driver. No, you can't. I'm not. No, I need somebody to take them. So it's like, okay, we got to crack that mentality and or find the pool of parents that have the mentality already. And that's kind of where we are right now. We got a bunch of parents that are just like, I do not have a car. I do not drive. I'm not an option, but my kid needs to get from A to B. And over 320, I think, was the last count of customers signed up since August. Majority of them are in that bucket. What we're not getting is the parent who comfortably drives every day, who has access in their back seat. And I thought when we did this, the way I look at it, I would love to be able to drive some days so that I can earn a day off to send my kid for free. And that's the method that we set up at the jump. We're finding that the parents that drive every day, they don't mind driving every day. It's like that's what they do. This is my gig. They may not be the income earning parent. They may have a comfortable income and just say, this is my time with my kids. So it's like, okay, we're not cracking them by saying, let's dangle this day off in front of them. That's when we started thinking about the corporate perks. So it kind of started with, if we could reach the employers and say, hey, look, can we add piggyback as a HR option? As you can get dental, you can get vision, you can get piggyback points if you have a family as part of the package with the company. And that way the company is paying a portion for it, and the parents are just getting that as a perk. And that's one way we could look at doing it. Another one is straight rewards method. So if you think of your credit card, swipe your credit card, you get points, and then when it's time to redeem the points, you can either cash them in or you can use them. You can use them for restaurants, gas, whatever the different partnership that the Visa has with the different retailers. You can cash it in for some type of a discount. So that second method is what we're looking at now, finding the sweet spot that these parents that don't mind driving, but are looking for something that's an incentive. So we're thinking vacation, we're thinking house, we're thinking restaurants, you got to feed the kids. We're thinking all these different perks that families are already spending money on, where we can say, hey, look, on these things if you open your back seat to a child. So does that answer the question on
Yeah,
the
yeah, definitely. That helps. It's funny. It's like intuitively for me, coming from my perspective, it's like I always felt like, oh man, like, I'm not just, gonna send my kid with anybody. But from your perspective, it feels like maybe that isn't as common as I might think. That it seems like it's an even bigger issue of like, hey, I'm cool with sending my kids off, just like when can I start? You know what I mean? Versus like,
Yeah, yeah.
versus like, hey, I just can't. Which is good to know. You know what I mean? If that's really kind of what's happening out there for a large percentage of your consumers.
I'm quick to say, like, there's certain people that are in a position that the work from home option is there, or they have a short commute, or something like that. But there's really families out there that when they have to take their kid to school, they're missing work and they're getting dinged for it. They're sitting there and they're getting ridiculed for missing their check-in time or missing an entire shift. So it's and you hear this when it's like, I got to go up to school to talk to my kid's teacher. This means I'm going to be in trouble at my job. So it's definitely a balance out there, and we want to make sure we tread lightly with that, because we need to mix the two customers together. We need to make sure everybody's working on the same accord. So that's the thought
Yeah,
there.
got it. Awesome.
And that leads into changing the narrative of how we think of the rideshare, of partnering with parents. A lot of us on this call, we were kind of forced to become friends because of our situation. We were working together, or we were at school together. So it's like, okay, we have this repetitive, running into somebody, and then you build that bond over time. You have enough forced socialization that you really become friends in real life. We want to create that bond because of the overlap of the kids. We want to use that to say, our kids are on the same team together, our kids are in the same dance program together. We don't have to fake interest in each other. We can actually, become interested in each other. And it's taken the price point that we have. We want to make it low enough so that it includes low income communities. We don't want to outprice the basic communities and say, this is only available for those that can afford a couple of $100s to send their kids each month. We definitely want to make it accessible. We want to have a broad footprint, because this working at the higher income level, it's just not where we're from. We want to reach the kids that are out there looking for the same opportunities that we were looking for, and touching the communities that ordinarily get looked over, and there's nothing there that's worth investing in, and we definitely want to invest in those communities. The Let me see, we can skip the other ones, we can move ahead. We talked about the community partnerships already. So yeah, we can open for questions just based off the concept. I know this is the depth is kind of new to some of you guys, so if you have any questions, comments on the process so far and where we're headed.
Yeah, pretty clear on my end.
Okay, and just one more point about what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks. So the investment piece, we have earmarked money for certain things. Miranda, you got a question? Go ahead. You want to type it out, or you want to come off mute?
Hold on, I'm typing notes in my phone.
So professional.
One of the things I keep hearing about is friendships, forced socialization. Broadly speaking, is this model going to be successful based on if I want to be friends with the parents who I want to help shepherd my kids to said activities on the same route? Is my first question.
So we did have a number of parents during the focus groups, and going back even before we kind of formalized this. They liked the idea of shared rides, but they wanted to come in with their own closed network. I want to have shared rides amongst these 5. I don't want to meet a stranger. And we took that idea to, like, they want to bond closer with each other, but they're not so interested in outsiders. And at some point, the functionality of the website will allow, a closed search. So you're not going to make yourself available to the public. We won't have a stranger meeting with you. But if one of your 10, 15 families that you came in this cluster with, you built your own network within the network, then you can use this to make that group stronger. What we don't want to do is you come in and you say, my girlfriend's in there too, and we want to drive our kids together. If you're just using us to drive your kids together, you're losing money that you could be paying each other directly. You know, if there's no concept of matching, if there's just you just joining to schedule the rides and pay the money to each other, then there's no benefit for the customer there. So if there's a group concept and you're just trying to see, like, if you're in some type of a social network, the flag football, for instance, if you want to say, hey, everybody within the flag football league that knows each other, let's join up and then we can match with each other within the group. You start realizing, oh, I never realized you worked there. I never realized you went there on Thursday. So then that provides the match feature for that. But if it's just trying to force rides that you already know the locations for, it's not going to be much of a benefit. Am I answering your question correctly? I'm guessing so.
Yeah, I kind of like
Sorry,
kind of the way you, oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Mariah.
please. I was going to say, so I said, I think you answered my second question, which is how do you keep people on the platform, which is kind of building this community. And like you said, if you're going to just be one-to-one, you're going to lose money. So it doesn't make sense for you to stay on. I mean, I'm pretty sure you got, well, I hope that you guys have factored in the risk of people exiting the platform, becoming friends, and then deciding they don't want to use it. But it still feels like, and again, if that's what it is, it's a trust model.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not the user for this isn't kind of the random family person who just wants to like get their kids to the next destination. Like they might be, but it sounds like it's really more for like those who are trying to build a community, the trust, kind of the longevity, because you're talking about vacations and corporate incentives and things of that nature. So I just try to get a kind of a sense of what happens if that doesn't exist or if that doesn't pick up, but you've done your focus group. So I guess that's something that you guys have thought through.
Yeah. So go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think what you're asking is if I don't want to speak to the person who comes to pick up my son, is that okay? And the answer to that question is yes, as long as we've established, or I'll say it like this, as long as I, as the parent, am confident and comfortable with this individual taking my son to baseball practice, for example. So there's a handful of parents on the team who I have no desire to talk to as an individual, right? But I know that our boys are on the same team. So yeah, James, you ride with him and ride back. And on the days that I drive, I'll pick up your kid and then, take him to practice, come back. We don't necessarily have to then, as the adults or the parents, start showing up for barbecues and inviting them over for dinner and all that. I don't get into that really. No new friends is how I roll. But Piggyback Network still facilitates our ability to share those rides. And then from a longevity or reuse perspective, I would say, if somebody moves, or if we move, or if teams change season to season, uh, uh, and my focus primarily is not on school. My focus is on extracurriculars, because many times each season comes with a new set of people you got to find to try and ride your kid around, including deciding whether or not the kids will get to participate if I already know that my schedule is going to be hectic, for example, during a travel season during the summer, or if I know I'm not trying to drive anybody during the winter. And so Piggyback Network is meant to establish the opportunity for you to say, transportation is no longer the key component to my decision on whether or not my child will get to participate. Instead, I know that they will have a ride, and I know that ultimately I won't be paying that much because it's a part of a shared ride experience.
Yeah. And we've had that question before. What happens if I meet my match and I don't need you anymore? That's great. We applaud that. You're going to change. Your seasons are going to change. Your atmosphere is going to change. Your job, your location, who you're dating, something is going to shift. And now you've got a new need. And if you've got that trusted match from the first scenario, chances are you're going to stick around and try to find a match for the second one if you've had a good experience. So the idea, we're not a subscription model where once you found your match, you're not making money. We're not making money anymore. It's definitely a transactional. Each ride is going to give us a portion of that ride. So we want to have as many rides going out as possible. Who you're using isn't as important to us as you trust the concept and you trust the network.
Got it. And I know I'm dominating, so sorry guys on the phone. Just one last question. So you guys are collecting a lot of information, and I instantly think of like with Joe, and I think of like Who's Afraid of Cats on Netflix. What are we doing for checks and balances, system safety? When you're thinking about route information, personal information, background checks, kids, parents, etc. Like, what's the plan there?
So fortunately, Donald and I are both very trained and certified in data protection and data safety. So first thing, we don't want the data that we don't need. Most of the stuff that we're collecting at the user level, demographic data, is just your email and you collect an encrypted password. That's handled by the platform that we host the website on. The address data is identifiable, but we're not keeping names in the same databases as we're keeping the addresses. You're a token, your member is a token, and then we're storing the locations. No location says this is exactly where you live. This is exactly where you work, where the kid goes to school. We're not keeping any information on the child themselves, no pictures, no names, no anything like that, ages, genders, anything like that. So when it comes to the information that we need to be able to conduct the match, to create the routes, to show you the cost based on the mileage, based on the day, all of that stuff, it is stored in data sets that's isolated from everything else, that's got all levels of encryption that the Wix platform offers and things like that. So if we got a data breach, you'll get a bunch of jumbled information that is useless. And we're not storing any payment information. We use Stripe for that. Same thing we're using for RBC. So that, from a initial standpoint, we're trying to just say we don't want it. We're not collecting it. At some point, we may start getting that information as part of the package deals with the corporations if they're going to want to purchase summarized information and things like that. But just to prove our concept, we don't need that stuff yet.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We got time for a bit more before we jump into investing. And then again, if something pops up during the investment talk, we can always jump in. It's a small enough group where we can handle it. So we offered a break in our first call where we had a little over 20 something people. If you guys want to stretch around, go handle stuff at the household, we can take a couple of minutes. If I don't hear that there's a need for that, we can keep moving. I think we've also mastered the Zoom call on mute so that most people are multitasking.
Absolutely. Jedi level, man.
Exactly. All right. So we'll jump into our investor roadmap. So we're pretty proud of what we're able to put together. Donald and I, we know the technical side, the money raise. This was always a learning process, like studying, like reading books, like trying to find out what other companies did. And then the scenario of just being in the community that we're in the year that we are in, and just the way our people think of money. Any of you all that were involved in, the fundraising today, donation, this is the largest day for donations. It is difficult to get our people to come out of their pocket. So it's something that we've looked at as, we're self-funded to this point. Everything we put together, website, the pilot, all the packaging, marketing information, everything's just come out of our pockets and just staying up a lot of sleepless nights. Now it's to the point where we've got some needs that we're not comfortable selling a house to put this up. So we want to create an environment where we're raising the funds, but we're not necessarily tapping into the already wealthy people that we know. There's people out there that seed companies. There's people out there that play around with money, that risk this money back and forth. And it's just what they do because they know something's going to hit. We're confident that we're working on something huge, and we wanted to start our friends and family seed round with people that are literally in our community that don't get these opportunities often. So as we started looking into it, to offer equity to an individual that's investing, typically they would have to be a high net worth individual, worth $1 million liquid, or have 200,000 or more in annual income, because the SEC has rules against pretty much predator investing. So like predator lending is going after people that probably can't keep up with the mortgage. They stop people from going after people that are not investment savvy, and for good reason. You don't want to take someone's $1,000 if that $1,000 was necessary to keep the lights on and food in the fridge. So it's a way of checking and balancing and saying don't go after the victim, but it also keeps the Black community out of the conversation when it comes to investing a lot. The numbers are very skewed of the number of us that own any form of stock, and then the number of us that get an opportunity to invest early in startup companies and just to be in the know of these opportunities. So we talked around, we were kind of bouncing ideas off of a few people that work in the industry that we know. And Donald literally just fell into his lap. It's like the phone was listening to the conversation. This fell into his lap. There are 64 different companies that they are brokers with SEC certification and all of the financial backing to allow us as a company to reach out to any individual regardless of their income status. And that's how we are able to offer friends and family seed equity to anyone that invests $250 or more. We put a cap at it at 50,000. We don't want people coming in saying, I want everything, but we want to give people the opportunity just to, if they have it, get a piece of this as it starts to grow. And equity means that as we grow, that money grows. So you're literally planting a seed with our company, helping us get our first round of activity going. And as our value increases, that money that you put in swells up with you adding anything else to it, without you adding anything else to it. So the roadmap that we put together has got 4 different milestones. We'll only talk about the first 2 today. So the green here is the friends and family seed round. That's what we just kicked off about a month ago. And it's moving slow. We're definitely, one of the reasons we're having these investor info sessions is just the educational piece of it. We want to be able to answer the questions that we know you have, because these are the questions that we had when we first sat down with the broker company that's helping us with this. And Donna, you want to give a plug for Seat at the Table?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
We got you.
You got me right in the middle of y'all go to bed now. Um, so as Ish mentioned, let's see. There's a lot of serendipity happening, which sometimes surprises people, but sometimes not. But Ish and I were in Chicago, basically arguing about whether or not we should take the time to create the opportunity for non-accredited investors to have the opportunity to invest in Piggyback Network. Because for us to do that would have been a significant amount of effort relative to what options were at our disposal at that time. Because primarily, you cannot legally send an email to a group unless you know every person in that group personally, and they promise not to forward that email to anyone, where it's a solicitation for investment. Sorry, I hit the wrong couple buttons. Sorry, let me go back up here. So we were having this discussion, and I was like, dude, this is not going to be possible, and it's going to take a significant amount of our time in order to jump through these hoops. So then we went to Michigan. That was like a weekend, and then I got back home, and it turned out, and as Ish said, it was like the phone was listening. There's a gentleman who we went to school with who's partnered with this other group, which is Seed at the Table, and Seed at the Table's sole purpose in its founding is to have all of the legal guidelines established for if we follow their path, which is filling out the proper documentation, ensuring that we have all of our legal information available and visible. We had to talk with an attorney. We had to make sure that we knew exactly what type of investment strategy we would allow. And they have a license, one of a handful of licenses that allows for crowdsourcing of non-accredited investors. And we know them, a handful. It's like 2 or 3 guys that we know on the team, on their seat at the table team. And so it happened all within the span of like 7 days, where I was like, okay, and Ish and I had come to an agreement that he was right, which is fine. But then it was up to me, right, to try and figure out how to make this happen. And Seed opened up. And so we worked through that process for probably about a month. And that's why we're on the Seed at the Table platform. We could not have this call without, well, we could have this call, but it would have to be a small lit, it would have to be that small group of investors who likely have 30 to 40, let's see what, no, actually more like 50, probably $50,000 liquid cash to give to us to make it worth our time having this discussion. Because we would only be able to have this chat so many times, and there's only so many people who we would be able to reach out to. In our network, relative to the groups that we know, maybe we know 10 people who would give us $50,000, but that's not what we wanted, right? The purpose in Piggyback Network is equity, and the purpose in this investment round is to enable our true friends and family to be able to invest at the earliest stage when your return on investment is traditionally the highest. But, and I'll just, for those of you who don't know, like friends and family is a casual fundraising round, but it's not formal. What it really means is people who have friends and family with millions of dollars, such that they can casually give tens of thousands of dollars without a need for a return on investment, is how most businesses get started, which immediately speaks to the wealth gap, at least in the United States, right? Because what that would mean is I would have to be able to ask my uncle for $50,000 and he not ask me for a return on investment. We know people for whom that is possible, and they are traditionally not black. And then, it creates in its inception, in the inception of who a founder is and what a founder can do, there's immediately a hurdle. And so with the ability for us to offer to our friends and family an opportunity for investment, where there is also the opportunity for a return on that investment. All of those 3 things come together inside of the Seat at the Table platform. And so it's exciting for us, but it also creates an avenue that was not and has not traditionally been there. And so it's pretty new. So it's up to us also to help inform, educate, and encourage our peers on what it looks like to be able to invest early round, to understand what risk is, right? Because risk is synonymous with investing. But then also to understand why the opportunity to invest should be taken. And given, I won't say that $250 isn't a lot of money, because that's it's not always true, but $250 is a significantly lower barrier to entry than, I would say, $50,000. And so if your 250 can turn into, even if 250 goes to 500 or 250 goes to 100, you've made $100 on 250. But if Piggyback Network becomes as successful as we believe it can be, right, then now we're talking about making real money. And because our friends and family would have been a part of that original investment, then anyone who comes in during a priced round would ultimately be putting money into our pockets, which would be a transfer of wealth into our community, as opposed to wealth just circulating around those who are wealthy, connected, and have access to disposable incomes in the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yep, yep. So again, if there's questions to this, because this was new to us, so we don't expect you guys to, jump right on top of it. So please pause us if you got them. But we'll jump into where we are now, which is, we've got this pilot out there, but it's still sort of a part-time hobby with a lot of potential. Self-funded, as I mentioned before, a lot of, sleepless nights, a lot of technology, a lot of Googling, finding out how can we do this, and YouTube, and we got some early media rotation as part of the bus driver shortage, so that helped out a lot. The pitch competitions, I'm getting some coaching left and right. I was able to get second place at the University of Chicago Southside Pitch. And I've got 2 more pitch competitions that hopefully will be lining up within the next 2 months with even bigger payouts. And we're getting support from a lot of just different walks of life. Like I said earlier about the Lego piece, we've created this Lego piece, and what people are envisioning the final product to be is just morphing left and right. So we're excited about where this could go and where it's headed, and we need help getting there. So next slide. So the first phase is our friends and family raise, and there's a hard stop. February 14th is the last date that we'll be accepting investments in this round. I think even if we hit our $250,000 cap, I think we can still raise as long as that date hasn't been reached. So we started it a month ago, targeted some investors that showed some early interest, and we've got I think to this day close to $8,000 raised. And today was the first time I've posted publicly on Facebook. Everything else has just been the email and text blast that we've been sending out, trying to catch people's ear. So what it is we're asking for contributions as low as $250. There's a max of $50,000, and we could guide that max. We just didn't want a couple of people coming in saying, I want all of it. We want to spread the wealth amongst those who can actually participate. What you get as soon as you invest is a simple agreement for future equity. That's the name of the document. It's a contract that says you, the individual, have invested this number in our company. And that number right now is just a dollar amount. But as Donald said, with time, as we grow, as we mature, eventually we hit a point where the venture capitalists are coming and saying, okay, we want to take you to the next level. We want to scale you. We want to, meet the needs of what you've got to dominate what you're trying to do. That's when they start auditing our revenue and looking at our track record spend and projecting our 5-10 year forecast and saying this company is now worth X amount of dollars. Once they set that amount and they contribute their investment, that's when your SAFE agreement actually converts into equity. And it's important to note that we don't know that time. That time is based on the process that we put out as a company. So we may progress to the point where it's ready to go in a year, may take us 3, may take us 5 years. But once we get to the point where we can take that large investment from a VC and actually have a fund, a price raise, the Series A raise, that's when your contract converts to the equity. As a result of coming in early, you would get that equity at a 20% discount. So investing $1,000 right now means that when it comes time for equity, your $1,000 really has a weight of $1,250. You get an extra $250 in there because you got in early. So that's important. No, it's 1,200. I'm not doing my math right. I think it's 200 extra bucks. Because you came in early. So someone off the street that didn't invest early, they wouldn't be able to get as many shares as you do because you got in early. So that's important to note. That's the nutshell of what we are offering today. It's a contract We don't have a valuation at this point, so we can't say how many shares it's going to be. And that's been tripping people up that are invested before, where they know exactly what they're investing in, how many shares there are, how diluted the investor pool is. All of that stuff comes when we do our Series A fund. This is early steps. This is just cash in exchange for a contract saying that there will be shares once we raise that money. One other point to note, going through the broker seat at the table, there is an added protection for the investor. If we do not raise $100,000 during this entire campaign, if February hits and we've only raised $60,000, all of the money goes back to the investor. That's basically the SEC saying, you're not real enough. You need more people. Like we're not even going to let you continue with the process. It's too risky. Give everybody their money back. So our cash is being kept in escrow as we raise it until we hit that sweet spot of 100,000, and then we're able to pull from that and start using it towards our needs. Any initial questions on that? That's the biggest part that involves you guys on the phone.
No, good overview. Super clear.
So the impact of that, now we've got this idea, piggyback in the bubble, plus some money to play with. So already the lawyer on the phone knows this. Legal fees have eaten up a lot already, just to be able to ask you for money, to be able to, present the documents, to be able to apply for the patent. We're talking revenue that we just have not generated yet. So a lot of that stuff that's come out of pocket is just like, what else do we have to do? And we've got a friend of ours that was offering legal services in exchange for equity really early on. And we kind of laughed like, we're doing all the work, but lawyers make sure they get paid first. So we've seen a lot of those fees. Another step is marketing. This slide hasn't been updated to show the latest stuff, but we've been talking to a national marketing team. We have a follow-up meeting on Thursday, and the 2-year contract that we're looking at signing with them is going to be between the like $60,000 to $90,000 range to cover content, commercials, the different markets, the different strategies. They have kind of like a money back guarantee. If we don't get this many leads from this process, then we don't pay for that month. There's a lot of good little nuances that they have in there because they know how fickle customers can be. So a lot of the budget that we're looking at for this initial round is already spoken for. And then we do have some to play with, because if this marketing stuff hits and we start turning that traction, then we're going to be in a nice sweet spot. Next slide. Donald, did you download this or is this the link? I'm guessing it's downloaded.
This is on the site,
It's,
but I'm not sure if we've shared this exact slide.
okay.
I think this is internal to our drive.
We can keep going with this, but yeah, it's a different one that I added. I've already talked about it, but the retail incentives, where I think it's in the next slide. What's the next one? That's technology. Okay, yes, it's cool. It's cool. We don't have to do it now. All right, on to the technology one. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say on the marketing side, is it like an ad agency that you guys are working with, or a marketing kind of consulting firm, or just curious who you guys are working with or who you plan on working with?
Red Rover, if you're familiar with them. They are sales as well as marketing. So they're looking at playing both functions, identifying the different markets that we could tap into, playing with the numbers, looking at the different demographics, who looks at what type of media, who's watching TV, who's looking at these networks at this time, where your single parents are, where your stay-at-home parents, all these different things. They can do it at the national level, but we're starting with our pilot cities and looking to see what's our biggest bang for the initial buck. Because once we start turning out those larger populations, then we can use that revenue to kind of fund the direction for going after different niches.
Okay, cool.
But I'll have more details after our call on Thursday. They're bringing more people to the call. We've only had 2 meetings with them so far, so definitely
Sure.
looking to see more of. They want to see what we want to bring to the table, and then we want to see, what the
Mhm.
process would be.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Cool.
I'm going to add a thought that had came to me but then went away. It's in a higher slide. Let me go back up. One other thing about the friends and family seed funding round is because it's a non-priced round, it encourages all of us to be invested in Piggyback's success. So, as it relates to building community, but also building education and comfort around the concept of investment and around the concept of entrepreneurship, um, by us having you all invest in us, we also bring you on as partners ultimately because our success is your success. And so this may come up here later, but even as we talk about, will you buy a safe and go on seat at the table and contribute to the fund? The other part of that is sign up for Piggyback Network. Sign up because when the priced money round investors are going to be asking, well, how many rides have been executed? How many members do you have signed up on the platform? What is your attraction? What is your conversion rate, et cetera, right? So a part of those details are included in how much money did you raise during your friends and family round. So I would say keep in mind that by investing, you're not only investing money, but you're also investing energy, and a part of that energy goes towards our collective success.
Good point. So the technology is the last thing we have on here, and that's some people keep asking if this is an app, and it's a website to start. It's a website that I've been doing the coding on, and any tweaks, any features that we have so far came from me. We definitely want to get to the point where we're hiring, if not skilled contractors on a kind of repetitive basis. We're putting a team together to handle the different technical features as it starts to grow, and I can kind of keep myself more so on the managing the business side of things. But we know that's going to cost a penny as well. So we want to finalize at least most of our technical approach before we start talking to converting to an app. And it actually may happen in the future round if we have a lot of just churn and turnover that's going on at the basic level. We know we want to convert this to a much cleaner, much smoother, stealthier process, but we want to get the bells and whistles kind of identified before we do that. So that's kind of the thought on the technical side, where that cash is going to go for the seed round. Okay. Next one. So after we've been through the 3 months of raising, and hopefully we hit that sweet spot by February that we've reached that 100K and we can start extracting and actually putting that money to use, we are looking to get the market traction. That's when our marketing actually starts to bring us some quantifiable results, and we're getting those drivers up, and we can actually show growth month after month. We can get to the point where when the season changes from winter to spring and those new sports start coming in and people are outside more and people are changing their locations, we see the transition in the drivers. We see new routes, we see new matches and things like that. Now we can start to baseline how our company's doing, based off the numbers, and then that's coming in. Next slide. So that presents a cycle. Now we're marketing more, we're advertising more people are learning about us. As they're learning about us, they're feeling more comfortable, the network starts to grow, and Piggyback is starting to gain in profitability. So those school districts and those different cities that have come talk to us in the early states, once we revisit them with that customer traction, we say, hey, look, Chicago's popping, we got it going, we're getting this match rate, and we can actually start putting, how much of an investment cost is related to converting a customer, and things like that, what our retention rate looks like, what our recommendation rate, which customers are telling their friends. We're starting to present those numbers so that now we're approaching cities and saying we know it works. And that's the goal with that next that next 4 quarters. Okay. So as we grow, as those numbers start to hit, that's when we start to kind of get closer to telling the investors, hey, look, we're doing well. It's looking like, we may hit that point where we're hitting that Series A by this month, by this quarter, by this year. This is kind of that customer traction is really the sweet spot that lets us know how well we're doing and when we can get to that point. So that's where I was kind of saying we're only talking about the first 2 spots in our investment roadmap at this point. We will hit a point where we're reaching the others, but just wanted to kind of just highlight what's going on in those first 2 milestones. So now I can open it up for discussion. Anything, anybody? So quiet because we're opening up our checkbooks.
Yeah, I'll jump into as people, start to generate questions. One thing that's important to remember is, and actually I skipped these slides, so I'll probably go back. I will go back. Is we were talking about market opportunity, but we skipped the revenue stream. The way Piggyback Network will generate revenue is people will pay for points. Those points will be used to schedule a ride, but those points also function as the exchange of good and service, right? So you will purchase a point to put your kid into a car, but then if you drive, let's say the next day, you drive somebody else's kid, what you receive are points. By keeping the point system, we kind of lock in. We isolate ourselves from individuals who just want to drive, because we purposefully do not want to be a transportation agency. But at the same time, the point system allows us to hold money, right? And so if you think of it as a CTA card, for example, when they went to I guess before they went to Ventura, but when it was CTA card, you had to have $20 on your account, even if your rides were only $5 a pop or $2 a pop. It's similar in that fashion, except when someone drives, we are not transferring the full amount of points to the driver that the rider would have paid. And so in that difference is the revenue that Piggyback Network will keep, but also because we have the opportunity to hold it, there are other financial opportunities available to us, especially from a research and development perspective, such that we will be constantly innovating using the revenue that we're generating as a function of people riding, in real time. So we won't necessarily have to wait to receive revenue or, wait to recognize any of the revenue, because as soon as somebody purchases points, those revenues or that money is ours. And most of it will go towards enhancing the platform, because if you know anything about Ish and I, we are very ambitious, and sky is always the limit. So actually, I don't even know if sky's the limit. Maybe we'll take you all to space. But I just wanted to cover that slide. And the question came up around data use. As Ish mentioned, because we are in data warehousing, and especially around data privacy and protection, but also understanding the value of data, we will probably, how do I say this? Because we have guiding principles that say do what's right and do what's best, I believe that we will always focus on anonymized aggregated data. We'll probably put it into the system because at some point we'll have to move this data to the cloud. And once we're in the cloud, it's even more secure. But once it's in the cloud, people will believe that they should have access to raw, unanonymized data. And that usually is what triggers the most money, right, paid to organizations who are collecting data. But we will, I don't want to promise, plus this is recorded. You never know, right? If somebody shows up with a couple $1 million check per week asking for unaggregated data, we'll have to have a conversation about it. But at least to start, we're not just going to be using the data as a reason for someone to give us money. And part of that is because we want to ensure that people, trust Piggyback Network the same way we're asking them to trust their partners with driving, right? So we want all of it to be a trust-based system focused on equity, not necessarily focused on shareholder profits.
And that methodology and that sort of those values are gonna tie into if we're receiving offers for exits. If someone's trying to buy piggyback off of us and their goal is to turn it into weaponized data, and they get away from the values that we're kind of looking at as far as which communities we're looking to help and how we're looking to help, like that's not going to be very attractive to us. We want to make sure just the name itself, just helping somebody else out, like that's really the focus that we're trying to do. And we think as long as we stay true to that we keep our core values intact. We've got 9 to 5s. We're not trying to do this to completely, sell out and jump on the rich wagon. Like this is a purpose over profit type initiative for us, and we want to make sure that that's clear going into it. So that's it.
How's our
Awesome,
time?
man.
7 to 8:30 with 10 minutes left. Nice. Good job.
Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate this, fellas. This is great. Extremely well done, and yeah, thanks for the time.
Thank you. Appreciate the questions. And, you guys all have our numbers if you want to reach out, if anything is lingering. We aren't offering these decks, but we will forward the recording of everything. The decks are still kind of being tampered with and edited. So we want to make sure those are finalized before we're able to distribute those. But yeah, spread the word. Like we keep mentioning, this is something that you are able to share with your people. We don't have to keep it closed. We're just trying to make sure our people, brown and blacks, get a hand at this before we release it to the folk that do this for a living. So that's the idea.
I have one comment.
Sure.
I haven't seen in the slides, and I hope I didn't miss it, but the means of investing, the
Like
different ways you can invest,
how you invest. So
how the funds have gotten to you.
So Donald, go to the portal. So because of the broker that we're using, so we aren't collecting the money directly to us. Everything goes through the digital portal here, where you're able to use bank transfer. You can write a check. You can use a credit card. They will take retirement funds. Not exactly sure how that sets up, but you can do it as an individual. You can do it as a company. You can invest from a retirement account, but everything is creating a profile through the seat at the table portal. And then you would be able to make your contributions at the website.
Okay. Now, did I miss it, or was that information in one of the slides?
The link is in the emails, but no, we didn't walk through the actual portal here.
Okay.
If this is something you want to spend some time with, I can I can show you this on the side.
Well, I'm sure I can find out how.
Yep.
Yeah. And the question was asked not just for me, but for everyone to know.
Yeah, I was gonna say by asking the question, you're committing yourself to investing. So
I'm committed. How about that?
that works. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And actually, I happen to have some experience with the self-directed IRA. It's a little complex, but if anyone is interested in not just talking about the SDIRA for piggyback investment, but SDIRA in general, feel free to shoot me a note because it opens up a whole host of opportunities. If you're creatively looking for ways to spend retirement funds before you're necessarily eligible to spend them.
All right. Any other questions? Okie doke.
Think we're good to go. Thanks again.
Appreciate everybody for joining in. Hopefully we'll chat about it soon and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Bye.